So we're speaking with Cenk Uygur from the Young Turks. I have to thank you and also tell you that you've made my life hell, both with the same recommendation. A couple of years ago we met at Talkers in New York, and you said, you got to start doing video. I was thinking about it, and we did, and it's been great. But it also ended up with me having to bring all of this stuff and try to find it all within like the last 6 hours before our flight. So thanks, but also no thanks, you know.
Sorry.
Well, hey, it's worked great. And you guys, now here's the only thing. We have 279 YouTube subscribers on our channel. You've got 130,000. So we're lagging behind a little bit. But, hey, one at a time. That's the way to get it,
We
right?
build this temple one brick at a time.
How long were you guys doing video and putting it on YouTube before you hit critical mass? Some people say you need 1,000, and then it starts just going on its own.
That's interesting. We were definitely doing it for a while before it caught on. No question about that.
Yeah.
And the '08 elections helped us a lot because that gave us a good deal of momentum as people were gravitating towards those issues, right? But I'm not sure there was a magic moment where all of a sudden it took off. It was a real gradual build.
It was just slow and steady, keep plugging away
Right.
and doing what you do.
Right.
So I had Glenn Miller on my show a little while ago. This is the KKK guy. You mentioned it briefly in one episode I saw. He's running in Missouri, and he's running these "It's the Jews" stupid ads.
Oh, Jesus.
So I have him on the show, and we're just talking about, what's his campaign based on. It's based on hating Jews. And I said to him, do you hate me personally? Like, I'm
That's
Jewish,
a
but
great
we've
question.
never met. So I would
Yeah.
think, is it a general hatred? Is
Yeah.
it me? He says, no, I hate you specifically. You are a Jew liar. And even this entire interview, the premise of this entire interview is completely bogus. So we put the interview out and start getting tons of feedback. Most of it is, hey, you handle it well, you didn't get into an argument with the guy. You can't reason with someone like that. There's a contingent that started trying to get us kicked off of some of the stations we're on, saying even having that guy on is a platform for hate speech, and there has to be some line. But to me, that line sounds like opening the door to a slippery slope, right?
I totally agree with you. I'm 100% on your side. Look, who watched that interview and thought that guy made sense? I mean, no. Look, and for the guys who thought they made sense, they were hopeless to begin with. I think letting him air his opinions in that format, with you doing the interviews and questioning him, etc., I think exposes ideas for how ridiculous and buffoonish that they are. I mean, that's a great question you asked him. Do you hate me personally? And when he says yes, he might even lose a couple of skinheads. And go,
That might be too extreme for them, even.
Right? Like, yeah, David seems like a nice guy. I mean, I thought I kind of, you know what I'm saying?
Well, the other argument that was made was somebody might hear that, and if they don't see that the host is being critical enough, they might be convinced to vote for the guy or to agree with hating Jews. But you could make that argument, even if I disagree, maybe somebody doesn't like me, that could convince them, right? I mean, you can't go by that.
No, that's crazy talk. I mean, and the guy's hanging himself. What do you need to say? I mean, all you have to do is go look at how ridiculous he is. No, I'm not buying that at all.
We interviewed prior to that Paul Cameron. I don't know if you're familiar with him. He's this sex researcher, but he's been fully discredited as any kind of researcher. He said if we repeal Don't Ask, Don't Tell, there's going to be willy-nilly gay rape in the military. Of course, the study was based on 17 people, 7 of which were people he personally knew, had him on, and it was written up in Huffington Post by an African-American gay journalist who said, a lot of people saw this interview, and they say this guy should not have a platform. Basically the same thing as with Glenn Miller. And he said, you know what, I'm gay, and I'm African-American. If this guy doesn't get on, his opinion doesn't go away. You can't just not give them a platform. I mean, it's similar to the Westboro Baptist Church. Do you agree that, where would you fall on that? I mean, if nobody has them on, do their opinions go away, or do you have to expose them?
Yeah. No, look, I think every show should make that decision case by case, right? I don't think there's any harm in interviewing the guy that you did. In fact, you expose his study for being nonsense because that so-called study is out there anyway, and he's been trumpeting that around as if it's real. And so if you can debunk it a little bit, I think you do a service. Now, the Westboro Baptist guys, I'm not too interested in them, so I don't have them on my show. But if somebody else does, I don't have any problem with that. I think, it's a free country, and I mean, again, they're inordinately easy to debunk.
Sure.
So, and it could make for an entertaining show and an informative show.
Well, what about the argument, though, that just by having them on a program is giving them some kind of credibility?
I don't think so.
You don't buy that?
I like the Howard Stern show a lot, do I give credibility to the dwarves that are on there, or whatever it is that we call them these days? So, you know, was it the angry midget that he calls them? I don't remember, but yeah, no. Do the lesbians on that show have more credibility? I don't know. Okay, it's absurd. No,
just being on a program doesn't mean anything. It just means you're on the program.
It's how you frame them, right? If CNN has them on and say, on the one hand, we have this expert saying, don't ask, don't tell doesn't make any sense, or whatever, gives sociological data, etc. And on the other hand, we have this guy who's totally into gay rape and thinks it's going to happen. Well, then that's unacceptable, because you put them on an equal platform and you frame them wrong. But as long as you frame them right, I don't see any harm in it. And by the way, I love that guy's study. He asked like 17 of his buddies, and they're like, yeah, if gays were allowed in the military, yeah, I'd definitely do gay rape. I mean, somebody would, right?
So, the question of the framing is interesting to me, because we see on every news network, on, blogs, everywhere, here's one opinion, here's the other opinion, here's the unbiased moderator. But on a lot of channels, the moderator is not really unbiased, and the framing isn't unbiased either. And you've been on MSNBC and a bunch of others. What's been your experience with what's going on behind the scenes? Meaning, do both parties usually in those cases know what the framing is going to be? Do they think it's going to be a totally fair setup? I mean, you tell me.
I think people have a decent sense of where people are coming at it from. Like, I've been on Fox News a couple of times, and I was never under the delusion that it was going to be a fair debate, and I knew it was going to be 2 against 1.
And is there a pre-interview that gives you a sense of what's going to happen, or you just basically show up and you know what to expect?
Different shows handle things in different ways. Like, some shows will tell you what the topic is. I mean, they got to tell you what the topic is, otherwise why are you on?
Right.
Some will give you more detailed questions, and it just varies on the detail. But nobody will tell you, oh, by the way, I'm biased in this way, so you know. Right?
By the way, it's going to be framed up to make you look silly and give you, 10% of the time that the other person gets. Right.
And if you're on Fox News, that's exactly what you expect. If you're on CNN and MSNBC, you know it's going to be really quick, and that you better be ready to lay out your case. And I'll make a slight distinction between CNN and MSNBC. MSNBC is going to get framed, I think, fairly accurately. Those shows that I've been on CNN, it's going to get usually framed from the conventional wisdom approach in Washington, whatever conventional wisdom is
at the time.
At the time, and that's usually a right-wing position, not as right-wing as Fox News, but pretty right-wing. So, I expect
what to expect. Yeah.
Yeah.
When you're preparing for an interview, have you ever been asked by either a handler or the person you're going to be interviewing for the questions up front?
When
you're going to do an
when
interview,
I'm doing the interview, has somebody asked me for the questions up front? In some subtle ways, some people have. If they say, "Hey, give me all of the questions," I say, "Well, good luck to you," but that's not what's happening.
Yeah.
Right. But and I think it's fair if
is it fair? I mean, it's only happened to me a couple of times, and it's been with some guests I really, really wanted. Right, I would have hated to lose them because they wanted every question up front, but I said no. It doesn't feel right.
Right. No, if they ask you for all the questions up front, no, I don't think that makes sense. But if someone says, hey, look, you know what, I lost my kitty cat the other day and I'm just devastated by it, can you not bring that up?
Sure. That's reasonable.
Yeah, and it depends. If you're having him on to talk about kitty cats, then the answer is no.
Sure.
But if you're having him on to talk about healthcare and you go, oh, okay, you don't want to talk about your cat, okay, I can live with that,
Yeah.
Because it's the context of that interview.
I actually wrote an op-ed in a local paper in Massachusetts a couple weeks ago talking about handlers, and a lot of times when I'm asked to stay away from a certain topic, the principal, the person you're interviewing, number one, is not even aware that the interviewers are being asked to stay away from that.
That's true.
And number two, sometimes I'll make the call and I'll say, they've never been on my show. Worst comes to worst, they'll never come on again. I'm just going to go there anyway. How many times have you had to make that call?
A lot.
And what do you usually do? Well, or is it really one-on-one? You got to handle it case by case.
Case by case. And look, it's enormously important for our show, as the ethos of our show, that we don't sell out for access, right? So if somebody says, here, ask me this question, or otherwise I won't come on, we're not going to agree to that deal, because that's not what we do. Right?
Will you announce this person was going to come on, but they insisted on knowing the questions, so we said no?
Again, depends on the context, but from time to time we've definitely done that.
Yeah.
Or if someone bails out on an interview because they found out we were actually going to ask them questions.
That's happened too.
Right. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And then then I might call them out on air on that. And I, to give you a rough example, Lou Dobbs was on the show, and his handler had, said all these different things, but I think exactly like you said, I don't think Lou knew that. And then so I'm asking him questions, and the PR person got on the line in the middle of the interview, okay? And I'm like, are you crazy? We're on air, right? And then Lou Dobbs got mad, and he's like, no, of course I'm going to answer the question, and shooed them away. And
so it's not uncommon that the interviewee is actually much more open to talking about stuff than their handler.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And look, they're a little bit more on the spot, and even if they had told their handler earlier, if they're on air, they're more on the spot, to be honest. But I think in general, my experience is that they're earnestly more willing to answer questions than their PR people want them to.